tactical training company involved in protesting a pride festival tries unsuccessfully to distance itself from what happened and explain how it might impact their work with local law enforcement. A rural county where property assessment soared says they messed up. Bad. We learn what brought Donald Trump together with a CU Boulder visiting scholar. Fateful decision that led both to get indicted. The newest Democrat in the state legislature is calling for forceful cultural revolution. Forceful cultural revolution. Physical force? Ask him if violence to achieve political goals is acceptable. We have the numbers behind the astonishing popularity of those black license plates you see all over the road. And an animal shelter that believes no pet should ever be put down because of a behavioral issue is facing a financial challenge. But we're going to help together because this is next. The Tactical Training Group, whose members crashed Dougco Pride Fest in protest, is now dealing with the backlash from their actions. Abel Shepard will no longer be working with the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office as planned tomorrow. Abel Shepard would not comment about whether law enforcement agencies are cutting ties with them. Today, Abel Shepard denied involvement with the protests that disrupted Dougco Pride Fest, saying, quote, "The media has claimed that Abel Shepard was involved in the event. This is not true." Abel Shepard then acknowledged that many of the protesters you see here are, in fact, Abel Shepard leaders and trainees, but they insisted they weren't there on behalf of the Tactical Training Company. 9 News obtained this email, which appears to come from Abel Shepard's mailing list, recruiting people to go protest at Pride Fest, saying that children are being, quote, traumatized and abused by those pushing a perverse agenda. The protest recruitment email asked people to RSVP through a form under the name of Abel Shepard's operations manager. We asked Abel Shepard to confirm that the protest recruitment email is theirs and to explain it. The operations manager told us Abel Shepard would try to address our question. And then we didn't hear anything more. With property assessment and property taxes spiking, the attention has mostly been on the cost to homeowners in the metro area. But this is an all-over Colorado story. I mean, take people in rural Castilla County in southern Colorado who appealed their valuations and then got hit with huge increases on top of that.
Appealing was probably a real stupid decision, yes. That's a massive increase in property value. And I ain't done nothing to it. I haven't done anything.
We've been reporting on the situation in Castilla County for weeks. That's Thomas, who lives in the small town of Fort Garland. He told us he has not renovated his home in 23 years, yet his property value more than quadrupled this year. Castilla County now admits the issue was incompetence. Our Mark Salinger found out that the county made a terrible mistake calculating home values.
This home in Castilla County was valued at around $139,000 last year. When property valuations came out a couple months ago, it rose to $300,000. Then Thomas Larson appealed his value, and the county assessor more than doubled it.
$640,017. That blew me away.
Crazy, right? Something must be wrong. Yup.
That our mass appraisal calculation had an error.
An error.
And so,
Rhonda Lobato is the deputy assessor in Castilla County.
There's definitely mistakes that could be corrected.
When people appealed their property values, complaining they were too high, her office raised nearly 10% of them even higher, sometimes up to nearly $500,000, just because someone appealed.
How is that possible that you raised nearly 10% of home values on appeal?
So that's the issue, right?
In Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Douglas, and Larimer counties, not a single value was raised after someone appealed wanting a lower valuation. In Castilla County, it was different.
We've made every attempt to correct that error. Roughly around 1,000 property owners will be seeing a reduction in a letter in the mail next week.
Lobato says her office is understaffed, so they hired a third-party company to calculate residential property values. That didn't go well. Tomorrow, 1,000 landowners will get a letter in the mail telling them their property was valued incorrectly.
We are actually lowering a lot more values that didn't even protest.
Thomas had no idea why his home increased so dramatically in value this year.
I haven't touched it. One thing, I'm too old. The other thing, I can't afford it.
If he hadn't protested to the County Board of Equalization to tell them something didn't make sense,
Why would you do that?
he and 1,000 others would likely be stuck paying way more in taxes than they deserve.
So it's up to the county to fix these problems themselves. The state doesn't get involved. Every county is audited to try and make sure that their property valuations are correct. The assessor in Castilla County told me today that they actually still passed the audit this year, even though so many things clearly went wrong. What's not clear is why the audit didn't catch all of those mistakes.
I mean, I'm sure they're not glad, but I'm glad that you were watching. So the folks, this third party who was brought in to do these bad home evaluations, were they working in other counties too?
So that's a good question. We asked the state, hey, how many other counties have used this home valuation company? They don't keep track of that. So the answer is we don't really know, though the state has said that they have not heard from any other counties that have had trouble with valuations.
Wow. Well, I'm at least glad it's getting sorted out for some folks there in Castilla County.
Exactly.
Mark Salinger, not Marshall Zellinger. Someday I'll get it right. Thank you. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston is blaming the governor of Texas for the recent increase in migrant arrivals here. Today, the city shared some numbers to back up that claim. Denver says another bus from Texas arrived today. The team handling migrant arrivals says that Texas's Republican governor, Greg Abbott, has specifically sent 14 buses here carrying 700 people. That would be between late June and today. There are 850 migrants staying in local shelters compared to 500 migrants this time last month. The city lifted a state of emergency for migrant sheltering just last week, and the city's still trying to find a long-term local partner to lead this effort. We're learning more about how and when then-President Donald Trump came to pick a fairly obscure visiting professor from CU Boulder to be the guy to lead his legal effort to overturn the 2020 election. John Eastman, who nowadays is an attorney representing the Colorado Republican Party and indicted for allegedly doing crimes, explained their connection on Fox News.
I had written a very prominent article on birthright citizenship. That was one of the issues he wanted to take up in the campaign. And when other law firms were withdrawing and they needed a constitutional expert, I had that connection with him.
So while working for CU, Eastman had written an op-ed claiming that Kamala Harris is ineligible to be vice president because her parents were immigrants. Legally speaking, that's nonsense. She is eligible. She was born on U.S. soil. But Eastman's article for Newsweek closely echoed the racist birther lies that Trump loved to promote about former President Barack Obama. And this article apparently attracted Trump's attention. Newsweek later apologized for publishing Eastman's op-ed, which was kind of laughed out of the room by constitutional scholars. Harvard's Lawrence Tribe called it legally baseless BS and racist birtherism. Our next conversation tonight is with the newest and youngest member of the Colorado legislature. Tim Hernandez is, by his count, the 5th Democratic socialist at the State House. He was selected to fill a vacancy by a committee of fellow Denver Democrats over the weekend. At 26, he's the first member of Gen Z to join the legislature. And today, Hernandez told me he has a message for his colleagues who think he's too young or too radical.
And if you don't want to work with me, that's fine, right? But what's important is that there will be more young people after who take these seats, who have these values, who work towards these policies. And so there's a way of either you can choose to work with our generation, or our generation will work to make sure that we can work with ourselves.
Hernandez is getting a lot of attention, specifically from conservative media outlets. Fox News called him the Marxist teacher who called for forceful cultural revolution. When our conversation continues in just a moment, I will ask Hernandez about Marxism and about whether he disavows political violence. Spoiler alert for you, he does not. Animal shelters and humane societies across Colorado are struggling these days. You've got pet owners surrendering animals in increasing numbers. Donations have been slowing lately. And many of these places are faced with a choice to cut services, which can sometimes mean euthanizing more animals, or finding new revenue to stay afloat. That's why this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the Longmont Humane Society. Longmont Humane does not euthanize when they run out of space for new animals, and they do not euthanize for behavior issues. That means that the shelter focuses on intensive behavioral training with their animals so that those pets can go on to lead happy lives with forever families. Longmont Humane says that that approach is one thing that helps set them apart. But honestly, it is also expensive. They pride themselves on the fact that 98% of the animals that come in their doors go out to new homes in Longmont, Frederick, Firestone, Lyons, Dacono, Meade, and in Boulder County. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate to Longmont Humane. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations out of the gate of $5 to get us started with this micro-giving. You know me, I know you. We would love to save every single pet in a shelter in Colorado. What is within our power tonight, together, is to help Longmont Humane keep saving as many animals as possible.
Right.
Some people see forceful and they think violence.
Yeah, I understand where that comes from.
He is a hero to local progressives and he is a villain to conservatives. We'll ask Colorado's newest state lawmaker if he thinks violence is an acceptable way to solve our political differences. And the proliferation of those new black license plates on Colorado's roads, they're all over the place, got us wondering about which license plates are most popular. I'm betting you can guess the #1 most popular plate, but then come some surprises. Back to our next conversation tonight with newly appointed state legislator Tim Hernandez of Northwest Denver. He's a teacher, a community organizer, and according to conservatives, he's dangerous. Marxist teacher who called for forceful cultural revolution lands seat on state legislature. So let's unpack that. Are you a Marxist?
I'm not a Marxist. I'm against oppression, right? And I think that there's a variety of political ideologies that align with that, right? But that is also a democratic value, that we are against oppressive policy, that we are in favor of lifting the oppressed and building conditions where the oppressed are not oppressed anymore, right? That poor kids don't just go to poor schools, that poor kids go to fully funded schools just like every other school, that people that are unhoused have the right to housing just like millionaires have the right to buy their second, third, and fourth homes, right? And I think for me, it really falls on the line of I'm fundamentally opposed to oppression.
Forceful cultural revolution. Physical force?
You know, I think physical force, some folks in their politics align to their role. Unfortunately, I don't see my role as a physical forcer, right? Like I'm a teacher. I don't believe in physically forcing anybody to do anything, right?
I mean, here's the deal. You're on the Fox News Channel homepage because people think that you were advocating for some kind of violent cultural revolution. And you said violence isn't my bag.
No.
But do you think that it is necessary or acceptable?
I'm not here to police protest. You know, I think that folks who choose to relegate towards violence is a personal political decision for themselves. And I think that what that arrives at, and often is never people's first choice, right? Martin Luther King says the riot is the language of the unheard, right? And I think that as a state legislator, I'm looking forward to creating opportunities to hear communities, because hopefully we can prevent any form of forceful cultural violence.
Do you see or hear a disconnect between what young Coloradans are talking about and are concerned about and where you see attention being focused at the state level?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Every young person that I've ever met, ever taught in a classroom, ever met at a rally, ever organized with, ever worked with, is fundamentally afraid to die in a school, right? And you know, that's a really important issue, because last year there was an assault weapons ban that went up in the state legislature. Every young person I've ever talked to is in favor of an assault weapons ban. But folks at the state legislature didn't want to pass it. It died in committee on its first vote. Now, young people are becoming the adults. Young people are now the adults in the room. And now we're asking the critical questions of, are we going to uphold the same unjust society that we just lived through? Are we going to keep asking students to prepare to die in a classroom because adults won't be bold enough on gun violence? For folks like me, it's unacceptable.
My full 17-minute conversation with Democratic Representative Tim Hernandez is up on the next YouTube channel. There, we also discuss whether his views align with those of the Colorado Democratic Party. He says they do.
Oh, we really cranked up the dial. 31 days in the 90s. Whew, it was a toasty one with highs just shy of our record. 97 officially out at DIA. It was hot up there in northern Colorado, the eastern plains, 70s and 80s up in the mountains. Tonight, just a couple of clouds here around the Front Range with a few isolated storms just beginning to push in closer toward Alamosa and the San Luis Valley. Of course, we've been keeping our eyes on Hurricane Idalia. It's now dropped off to a tropical storm as it rolls out. High pressure rolling back in, and that just means the heat is back with us tomorrow. Highs soaring into the 90s yet again for us, really much of eastern Colorado. Looking at the heat, sticking around for the holiday weekend with 70s and 80 through the high country, 96 on Friday. Storms will be a bit more isolated on Sunday and into Monday on Labor Day.
The most popular license plate on Colorado's roads is not an expired temp tag, but that's a very good guess. Do you know the right answer? The story behind the most popular plate and a sudden new favorite. Next. Colorado has a redonkulous 214 different license plate styles. And I say that as a nerd who collects license plates. Our Marshall Zellinger breaks down the numbers.
Today I learned there is a Mesa Verde license plate. Actually, there are 676 of them. It's the 103rd most popular license plate out of 214 styles. There are 6.2 million license plates in Colorado. No, temporary license plates are not the most popular, just the fourth most popular, with 294,000 of them out there. The most popular license plate is the green on white that you see everywhere, almost 5 million of them. 4 out of 5 license plates look like this. Columbine, with 79,000, is the most popular specialty plate. It's 8th overall. Just behind Columbine in 9th, this new black license plate. Available since January, there are already 65,000 of these. The reason we're even looking at license plate data is because of this one, the Denver Nuggets plate that Tom Green saw last week. He should have bought a lottery ticket. There are only 1,354 of these, 0.02% of all license plates out there. Its popularity, though, is already up 9%. When the NBA playoffs started in April, there were only 1,233. 1 year ago, 1,016. 2 years ago, just 865. Let's compare that to the Colorado Avalanche before and after the Stanley Cup. In June 2021, 1 year before the Cup, there were 3,480 Avs plates. In June 2022, as the Avs won the Cup, there were 3,980. The next month, it went up to 4,122. Today, more than 5,000. The Denver Broncos Charities plate is the most popular sports team with 17,000, followed by the Avs. And then, hey, the Rockies are not in last. The Nuggets have some catch-up to do.
What kind of CU graduate would I be if I didn't tout that CU plates are the most popular university plate with not quite 13,000, puts them 30th overall. CSU Trails at 44th with 5,800.
I'm sorry, the most amusing one to me is the Pioneer plate, where it's just like, how old are you, sir? And did you unhook that from your wagon and put it on the car? I get it. You had generations back living in Colorado.
I think it's the fourth. I looked at it earlier. I think it's the fourth most popular specialty plate.
Fourth most popular? Mm-hmm. Wow. Let's hear it for the Pioneers. Maybe not the DU Pios, but the Pioneers. Feedback next. There's an animal shelter that serves a chunk of the Front Range that takes great pride in helping pets with behavioral issues, serious ones, overcome them so that they can go home to forever families and avoid euthanasia. But donations for Longmont Humane have dropped off, and it makes that expensive but important work more difficult. Tonight's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign will save pets' lives by helping Longmont Humane continue that work. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating. They're intent on getting every pet into a forever home, and we can help. Feedback tonight on new Representative Tim Hernandez. Sherry says, love his passion and clarity. She says as a 60-something, we need to get out of the way for young people who have the energy to change the world. But Jennifer says if Gen Z wants to be taken seriously, they should stop saying right every other word makes them sound like high schoolers. I would just note, in both defense of older generations and Gen Z, the idea of passion, clarity, and verbal hang-up words are not unique to one generation alone. Hopefully we can agree on that. We'll see you next time.